You believe you would survive the Black Death? That is a fatal assumption. The figure of a plague doctor walking through streets teeming with rats. It feels like a distant horror story, a brutal past you think you've outsmarted. But your modern logic is a liability. This is not a history video. It is a tactical assessment of medieval survival. We will simulate 7 fatal errors your mind is programmed to make. Errors that would guarantee your death. Pay close attention. The final error is not just a historical footnote. It is a system failure so profound, it remains a threat today. In any modern crisis, your first instinct is to evacuate. During the Black Death, that instinct didn't make you a survivor, it made you a weapon. Here's the brutal truth. The plague was deceptive. For up to 8 days, you would have 0 symptoms. You'd feel strong, healthy, and smart for getting out of the city, but you were already a walking ghost. The real enemy wasn't a sick person coughing. It was the invisible fleas hiding in the wool of your own coat, in the supplies on your cart. You weren't escaping the plague, you were giving it a ride. It was the medieval equivalent of saying you'll wait it out at a friend's house. Only your vehicle is a biohazard, and you're about to make your friends patient zero. The chronicler Boccaccio saw this firsthand, describing families who fled only to die alone on the road. They never outran the plague, because they were the plague. So, if running was a death sentence, staying put felt just as insane. And the choice many made next was the second fatal error. So, escape is suicide. The logical next move is to barricade yourself in, right? Find safety in numbers. Hide behind the thick walls of a church. Wrong. That was mistake number 2. When you packed into a church with hundreds of desperate people, you weren't finding sanctuary, you were stepping into a trap. The air, once filled with prayers, was now thick with the real threat, the pneumonic plague, the airborne version. All it took was one person's cough to turn that holy place into a pressure cooker for infection. The very air became poison. It turned the house of God into a gas chamber that used prayers for fuel. The community you sought for protection became the very mechanism of your death. There was simply no escape. This presents the first true tactical dilemma. Fleeing is a death sentence. Huddling is a trap. Faced with these 2 fatal choices, which one would you make? Leave your decision in the comments below. Because while many died in these public traps, the deadliest form of transmission wasn't public at all. It was private, personal, and driven by your best intentions. This is the mistake that feels the most unfair, the one that punishes you for being a good person. Your child develops a fever. Your partner begins to cough. What do? Of course, you do what any decent human would. You bring them water. You wipe the sweat from their brow. You hold their hand. You do everything right. For a world that no longer exists, but in the 14th century, you weren't being a caregiver. You were exposing yourself to the enemy at point-blank range. Every touch, every shared breath, every piece of bedding you handled was a gamble with a guaranteed outcome. The plague didn't care about your good intentions. In this system, your love wasn't a virtue, it was a vulnerability. Trying to cure a plague victim with compassion was like trying to defuse a bomb by giving it a hug. Your morality, your very humanity, was a fatal design flaw. So, if logic has failed you, community has failed you, and now even love has failed you, what's left? Panic. And panic on a massive scale leads to the 4th and most ironic mistake. When humanity is faced with an enemy it can't see, it does what it has always done. It finds something it can see and declares it the enemy. In the 14th century, for many that tangible enemy was the common house cat. Fueled by a cocktail of superstition and sheer panic, communities began to kill them. To the medieval mind, it felt proactive. It felt like doing something. But this wasn't just a mistake. It was pouring fuel on the fire. For every cat they killed, The population of the real problem, the black rat, was free to explode. Imagine the sound of thousands more rats scurrying through the walls, each one a tiny launching pad for infected fleas. This is where the law of unintended consequences hits like an avalanche. It's like having a virus on your computer, so you decide to fix it by smashing your monitor. You attack the most visible part of the problem, while the actual virus replicated unchecked in the background. If you find this kind of strategic analysis valuable, activate the like function. To ensure you receive future threat assessments, subscribe to this channel. This failure to identify the right enemy was tragic. But what happens when the fatal error comes not from superstition, but from the very people you are trained to trust with your life? The fever hits you like a sledgehammer. Then you feel it. A painful, egg-sized swelling in your groin or armpit. The bubo. There is no doubt what this is. Your modern mind, conditioned to trust professionals, kicks into gear. The solution seems obvious. You need a doctor. And then he appears. The figure in the long, dark coat, his face hidden behind that terrifying beak mask. He is the image of authority, the specialist. You put your life in his hands, and in doing so, you make your fifth fatal mistake. His diagnosis is based on a completely flawed understanding of the human body. His first prescription? Bloodletting. He opens a vein, draining the very strength your body desperately needs to fight. Next, he turns to the bubo. His solution is to lance it. The searing pain is immense, but he has just created an open wound in a world without antibiotics, inviting a wave of secondary infections. Worse, the pus he's just released is teeming with the plague, contaminating everything it touches. You called for an expert to fix your system, but his only solution was to pour water on the motherboard. He wasn't a healer, he was a well-intentioned executioner running on corrupted software. The doctor's failure was a failure of knowledge. But even if you avoided these experts, your own modern knowledge could betray you in the one place you felt safest. This is the mistake that would feel the most logical, the one that would make you feel smart and proactive, right up until the moment it killed you. You've barricaded your home. You're isolated. Now you do what any intelligent modern person would do. You declare war on filth. You scrub the floors. You wipe down every surface. Your home becomes a fortress of 21st century hygiene in a sea of medieval squalor. You feel in control, but you have completely misunderstood the battlefield. You were fighting a war against germs on surfaces when you should have been fighting a war against insects in fabric. The plague's primary delivery system, the flea, doesn't care if your floor is clean. It lives and waits in your wool blanket, the straw in your mattress, the very clothes on your back. Your vigorous cleaning doesn't eliminate the threat. It just angers the enemy, launching them into the air hungry for the nearest warm-blooded host, you. It was a classic intelligence failure, like installing the world's most advanced firewall but leaving your front door wide open for a burglar. You weren't cleaning your house, you were redecorating your own tomb. So your logic, your community, your compassion, your experts, and now even your own knowledge have all failed you. When every system collapses, there is only one place left to turn, and that leads to the final and most horrifying mistake of all. Every system has a breaking point. After logic, community, compassion, and knowledge have all led to death, you arrive at the final human response to absolute catastrophe, the abandonment of reason itself. This wasn't a choice, it was a total system crash. You see them on the horizon first, a procession of people, stripped to the waist, marching from one doomed town to the next. You hear the sound before you understand it, the rhythmic, wet slap of leather whips on human flesh, punctuated by moans and prayers. They are the flagellants. Their belief is simple. The plague is God's wrath, and the only cure is extreme public punishment. So you join them. believing this shared suffering is the only answer left. But you have just enlisted in a mobile superspreader event. As the flagellants moved across the land, they carried the plague into every village they entered. But there was a more direct consequence. The open bleeding wounds on your back from the ritual were a screaming invitation in a world teeming with bacteria. Without antibiotics, sepsis wasn't a risk, it was a certainty. From a systems perspective, the flagellant movement was the equivalent of a computer riddled with viruses, deciding the solution was to smash its own motherboard. It is the final, desperate act of a system committing suicide to purge itself. And with that, the simulation is complete. 7 mistakes, 7 fatal outcomes. Each one born from an instinct that would serve you well today, but would have killed you then. And so the final brutal lesson of the Black Death becomes clear. It wasn't malice or stupidity that would have killed you. It was your best intentions, your logic, your compassion, your trust in experts, your instinct to seek community. Each one a fatal flaw in a system with different rules. The ultimate lesson the past teaches us is this: survival isn't about the knowledge you have. It's about recognizing how quickly that knowledge can become worthless. It's about understanding, in the heat of the moment, that the entire paradigm has shifted and that you must adapt or die. This knowledge is both a burden and a tool. If you choose to carry it, join the circle of guardians who preserve these lessons. Subscribe. Which of the 7 paths to doom did you find the most chillingly inevitable? Leave your assessment below. If this analysis illuminated the darkness, let the flame of the like button burn bright. These lessons were paid for in blood. Share them, so their cost is not forgotten. And know that our next chapter dissects the brutal engineering of siege weapons. The schematics are waiting for you.